The danger that we have with all the hyperbole and the noise and all the vested interest being lauded and applauded as heroes that saved us from this awful, beastly six clubs that were going to dismantle English football is that actually there's some horrible, revolting culprits amongst our whole fabric of football that need to be attended to as well, which is ultimately that you've got player salaries through the ceiling and can't be managed and no one's doing anything about it. Unions that draw money out of football, that stop football trying to evolve to try and correct itself by putting wage caps in. UEFA, which is an organisation which is steeped in corruption and has driven people's agendas by the need to keep on generating more revenue and control the game the way that they want to. Broadcasters that are dressing themselves up now as the heroes that actually have driven the thinking behind why football's gone the way it does. And the hypocrisy that we're seeing, Danny, is almost gut-wrenching. Players that are sitting there being perceived as heroes because a few of them popped up at a populist moment saying they wouldn't play in the European Super League, when we all bloody well know that they would have done if push come to shove, because the economics would have made it so appealing to them.
I disagree.
You do in principle, because it's never going to be put to the test at this moment in time. But if the threat had been taken off the table, which I think was an empty threat, that they couldn't play in the World Cup, because FIFA aren't going to sit there and say, I'll tell you what, we've done a $15 billion deal with America to house the World Cup in 2026 based upon these players playing. We're going to stop them from playing. Forget about it. Empty threats. The reality is now fans are being propelled by the media. The media that has a vested interest, which is terrified of football actually getting its act together, building its own platform and saying, thanks very much, Sky, that was wonderful, we don't need you anymore, we can do it ourselves. All of these guys now sitting there in this wonderful era or air of how we've saved football from these six clubs. But people need to focus on why stuff like this happens. We know some of it's greed by the big six, but what about the other greed? What about the agents? What about the governance of the game? What about the players? What about all of this? And then we rile the fans up and convince them that the government are going to help them. The government are going to deflect from the current condition of the country and do nothing. And the fans are going to sit there saying, we've got a real chance to change football. No, you don't, because it's not going to change, because there's too much money. Until that button is unpushed, we're going to continue as we are.
Trevor, I can't remember which part that you were disagreeing with, but you were disagreeing with some part.
The players playing over in the European Super League, if they could not play for their national team, if that was a choice that players were given, no one would play. No one would go for it.
Trev. Rubbish.
100%.
Rubbish. They give up their international careers to prolong their careers. Jamie Vardy don't want to play
Very few
for England
players
anymore.
go out to
Shearer
China and don't play European.
Shearer stopped playing.
It's a theory that will never be tested.
It'll never be
tested. As I said many times during the last week, you know, FIFA are not going to allow the best players not to play in their tournament, because for a start, I don't know which TV companies they are, will be just going, hang on, this is not what we were sold. And they'd be having their begging bowl out for a massive refund. And of course, it's one of the reasons why PSG didn't ostensibly get involved, because of course they're Qatari owned. They don't want their World Cup disrupted either. They don't want the best players not playing in a World Cup that they have, how can I put this, managed to get across the line. Yeah, managed. Absolutely right. And so it goes on. And I hope with all my heart that this is a moment for change, and at the very least that change will mean that fans' voices will get heard. But I have to say, in nearly 30 years of commenting on professional football, I may have said that sentence more than any other than Spurs have lost another semi-final and lost another final.
And on top of that, Danny, and on top of that as well, I think we need to really try and safeguard the football pyramid and make sure that nothing like this really ever gets over the line.